Dude, it's been a long time. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time.
So you're still in Bali. Has Bali turned into a ghost town, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I'm still in Bali, and it is not quite a ghost town. I guess there was a time when they put some pretty heavy restrictions, and then it felt like a ghost town. The beaches were completely empty and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But seems to be back to normal-ish. There's not as many foreign tourists here, but there's a bunch of people from Jakarta. So
Okay.
yeah, it's different, but yeah, it's been kind of nice to be here. Actually, it's
Yeah.
we found a
Less.
really great place, and
Mm,
have just been hunkering down, doing a lot of working out and working.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're still in
You still doing
Lisbon?
the CrossFit?
No, I have stopped doing CrossFit and I started doing more calisthenics. So I'm trying to get
Right.
my. I'm really working on my freestanding handstand push up right now, and then one arm chin up.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh man. Okay. Okay. Those are some ambitious goals. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of
yeah,
want to do. I want to do a freestanding handstand push-up as well, but I'm like nowhere near. I'm nowhere near. I can get
yeah.
into a handstand and then collapse onto my face. That's that's how far I've got.
See, I'm the other way around. I can do the handstand push up, but I can't. I haven't gotten the freestanding balance yet. So once I
Oh,
get
okay.
that, I think I'll be able to get it.
Nice. So when I was in Bali, right, about 2 years ago, they were just building like restaurants and tattoo parlors and whatnot on every free spot along the road. Like, what
Yeah.
happened with that? They all go out of business.
Um, I think yes. There, I think only the strong survive. So there are some tattoo
Yeah.
parlors that have basically gotten way stronger, and you saw most of the ones that weren't so strong. Most of them have been put out, and you see the same with restaurants as well. There was a restaurant every single week, and now only the ones that were really up on their marketing, it seems like, or had a kind of a cult following before everything happened. They're the ones
Mm,
that have survived.
mm.
And I used to joke as well, like back then, anytime I would live in a new spot and I saw them building a new vape shop, and it was starting to be time for me to leave.
Yeah.
Mine that was always that
Yeah.
was my
It's like the border of vape shops expanding.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah that was my
Wow.
Bali top signal.
Man, that's actually genius. Yeah, that's actually genius. I think you absolutely nailed, you absolutely nailed the top signal there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
damn.
but I think the next top signal now is the shortcut being redone, and so it's just
Uh-huh.
over the pandemic has just slowly gotten worse and worse and worse, with more and more billboards popping up, and they have started to fix it. They did like a fundraiser to get donations, and they've taken down all the billboards. There's like a famous shop, and there's this huge billboard advertising float tanks and or ice
Uh-huh.
baths, and it's just a picture
Uh-huh.
of Joe Rogan like close up on him with super hard nipples, and it says like, you want nips, you want nips like Rogan, come take this ice bath. And it was just like a giant fucking billboard on the shortcut. Oh god. And so
Oh
that just
God,
came
okay.
down, and the shortcut's looking nice. They're paving
Yeah.
it. They actually got
Wow.
surveyors out there to like completely obliterate the whole thing and building it properly this time.
Oh wow. I never thought I'd see the day. I do miss that place, man. Oh, I miss that place. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm having Bali nostalgia right now.
Yeah, man. It's
Yeah.
been a great place to get locked down, to be
Mm,
honest, and had a lot
mm.
of time to just go to the gym. The people that are here are very. I worked out a lot at Nirvana. I don't know if you ever worked out there, but the people that,
Yeah, I was there briefly. Yeah. They have the
yeah,
coldest bloody ice bath I have ever witnessed. It's
yeah,
unbelievable, man. I thought I'd gotten, I went to Amo, right? And they have
yeah,
their ice baths are like, I don't know, between 10 and 13 degrees or so, depending on what day you're there. And I'd
yeah,
gotten to the point where like, yeah, I'm pretty tough now. and I went into the 6 degree 6 degree Nirvana ice bath. It lasted for about 12
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I can't even sit. I have to sit there with my hands like this because if my arms go in it, then it's too cold.
Yeah,
My
it's
fingers
game
start
over.
going numb.
Yeah, and I did when I was there. There was some older gentleman who was just chilling in there like it's nothing.
I think I know the exact guy you're talking about. Where I like walked down and was like, oh, I thought that was the ice bath, but it looks like he's chilling in the hot tub, and
Yeah,
he just fucking crushing it.
it basically killed off all his nerve endings by now, probably.
Yeah, exactly. That's such a great
Man.
example of a gym built by a man. Like you walk down to those ice baths and it's just like the bare minimum. Like it's just
Yeah,
ice baths, nothing on the wall, no paint, concrete. Then you go to it's just like no thought put into aesthetics at all. It's like we need ice
yeah.
baths in a hot tub. There it is. It
It's
works.
just it's only suffering. That's all you get.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, no, Nirvana was I was there briefly. Yeah, that's a pretty cool gym. Lots of extremely fit people. Nirvana is
Mm.
where I bumped into the six pack guy. What is he called? Damn, I forgot his name. There's this six pack shortcuts. Was it six pack shortcuts? Like
Mm.
he was one of the top selling ClickBank people, right?
Oh wow.
And he was a bit of a meme. He also had a YouTube. Actually, he has a YouTube channel again. God, why I can't remember his name now. Anyway, this guy was one of the top selling ClickBank products, and he was this roided up dude with his glistening abs everywhere. You'd see the ads
Yeah.
everywhere. I bumped into that guy in the Rana gym, and I was like, interesting.
Did you talk to him or just see like that's that guy? I know
No,
who he
I
is.
didn't. I never talked to, but I did actually. I got to know his crew, so I got to know a bunch of other people who
Mm.
then turns out were working with him and stuff. Yeah, I think he's turned. He's now more of a health guru or something. It's not just six
Mm.
pack. But it's just interesting
Mm.
to see. Um, yeah, interesting to see like the legends in real life.
Yeah, yeah. And there's still a few of them there that are I think is of Nirvana as I guess you have the two big gyms here now are like Nirvana and Body Factory, and Body Factory caters to the fitness influencers, I'd say, whereas
Mm,
Nirvana has kind of cornered the market on attracting really like high end athletes that are really into
right.
calisthenics and trying out these different protocols that are out of the norm. And so you see a lot of these
Mm,
guys that are just freaks of nature, man. That
yeah,
the
yeah,
strength up here, flexibility up here as well, and they
yeah.
have managed to get both of those curves super high. And they're just doing like full middle splits and then able to like pull their legs back together to come back to standing. And you're like, that is
Damn.
unreal.
Yeah, yeah. There's some unbelievably fit people there for sure. Mike Chang is the guy I was talking about, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Mike Chang,
I'm gonna have to look them up
legendary guy.
after this.
And super funny. I mean, there's some super funny content about this guy. He's
Mm,
kind of a living meme a bit.
right.
Anyway, yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm still in Lisbon, which is not a great place to be locked down. I mean, it's
Mm,
lately it's been fine.
mm,
More or less you can live a normal life again. But yeah, I was not having a good time here for for quite a long time.
yeah.
I just happened to be stuck here.
Mm. Did you make it out to Madeira at all? I heard that was a bit better.
No, I didn't know. I never went there.
Mm.
I've also been stuck here in terms of work in a way. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, but it's all good. It's all good. So I'm curious to talk to you about writing.
Mm,
So you know, journaling and introspective writing basically is one of the things I keep talking about. People who know me know it's like one of the things I never shut up about.
mm,
And so Dave, when we met in 2015, I believe that you had just come off of a boat full of ex-cons or something.
Yes,
Something like
actually.
that. Am I misremembering
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
Are we true, right? So at this time, so we met in 2015. You joined the Thrive Themes marketing team at the time. And if I'm not mistaken, you already had a writing practice at this time. Is that right? You were already writing regularly.
yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing this? How long have you been doing a writing practice?
Since I started a daily journal September 3rd, 2012. So it's
Wow.
been
Wow.
9 years, a little over 9 years
Yeah.
now.
Damn. Okay. And can you tell us like what is your practice? What is the thing you do? And let's start there. And then how come you've been doing it for so long? What you get out of it? But
Yeah.
what is it that you do?
So it has transformed pretty massively since I started, and
Mm,
it constantly goes through changes and updates based on what I am interested in. But now, talking broad strokes, I think there's 4 elements that I try to have in the practice. And there's the daily practice, but then I also have this aspect that allows for in the moment processing when something comes up or something happens and I really just need to get stuff out of my head. So there is a planned component that is daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly. And then there is this in the moment processing aspect as well. And I try to touch on kind of this idea of analysis and processing, future growth, gratitude, and what I call the totem, which is this kind of like idea of documentation. You're almost creating a trophy for yourself of highlights and different milestones that you're hitting, and so it's a way to kind of keep a running documentation of that.
mm. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So I have definitely done. I would say the thing that sounds the most similar to what I do the most often is the kind of in the moment processing, right? For me,
Mm,
writing is usually a tool that I kind of deploy when I need it. And I do some things daily, like I do some gratitude writing daily and stuff like that. But my most common use is like, yes, I need to get something off my mind, or something's bothering me, or I just had an idea or whatever, and I use writing as a way to kind of process that, right?
mm,
Um, in your daily practice, so basically, especially I'm interested in like the daily, weekly, monthly, yearly thing. It
mm.
seems like you're more systematic there than what I'm doing. So yeah, what is your kind of, are you doing a bullet journal type thing, or what is your daily practice there?
So it's broken down into 2 components, which is the top half is more of a tracking aspect where I use this time to check in on things or habits that are interesting to me. So at the moment,
Mm,
that's nutrition, that's finances, and health components. Um,
okay.
so I kind of track food and macros and this type of stuff. And then using like a smartwatch device type thing, I'm checking in on things like my heart rate variance and the amount of calories I'm burning and this type of stuff. And then there
Mm,
is an aspect where I'm tracking workouts that I'm doing. So as I mentioned, I'm trying to get this handstand push up and the one arm chin up. So there's this component where I'm just tracking the workouts that I performed. And so that's the
mm,
top half. Then the bottom half is more of a mindful practice. So the first part is just 2 questions that I answer. And so I answer my daily journal is I journal in the morning about the previous day. And so
mm,
everything is about the previous day except for this one section where I'm asking and answering 2 questions, which I do in that moment when I'm doing the journal entry. And so those 2 questions are how am I feeling and what do I want? And then the last section is highlights. And so I'll just write down 3 to 5 highlights. I try to do at least 3, and I don't have an upper limit where I will try to jot down uh, things that caught my attention from the previous day.
Okay. Okay. And so that's kind of like a gratitude thing where you
Yeah,
basically
I
write
would
down
consider that.
good things that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's more gratitude. Or also, I frame it in a way. It's called highlights, so it helps me to look at negative situations in a more positive light, which is I have found incredibly helpful. I think the most powerful example
Mm.
of that was one time when I was traveling. I had all my stuff stolen, and so the next day, sitting down to do that journal entry, I had to come up with 3 highlights about this day that I thought was terrible, was absolutely
Yeah.
a nightmare of a day. And so forcing myself to sit and find the highlights in those moments was extremely powerful. And I remember that day completely different because I had the highlights, things like
Mm.
these strangers taking time out of their day to help me go down to the police station and translate things for me, and people, other acts of kindness, basically, as opposed to having this terrible memory of Budapest, for example.
Yeah. 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 That's interesting. So reframing it as well. So to me, that's also what gratitude practice does. So what I try to write down 3 things I'm grateful for, like 3 very specific things that
Mm.
happened this day that I'm grateful for. So that I'm not just writing generic, oh, I'm grateful for whatever. Grateful for being alive and healthy, right? It's like it's fine to be grateful for that too, of course. But there's something else about saying, okay, what are 3 specific things that happened today that I'm grateful for? Even on a bad day, you have to think about, okay, what are 3 things that happened that I can still be grateful for? And I feel like there's value in that reframe, and there's also value in it makes you look for things to be grateful for. Or at least that's my experience, right? As I'm going through the day, I'm essentially looking for things because I know that I'll have to write things that I'm grateful
Right.
for. I'm looking
Yeah.
for things that are worth mentioning, basically. Yeah.
Mm. And yeah, I find that extremely powerful as well when you review it. This, what you've kind of touched on, this aspect of specificity, where I think
Mhm.
when I started the practice, I would write these things like had a cool dinner with friends, and it was these very quick generic things, and I would go back and review them a month later or a year later, and I couldn't remember the specifics of it. And
Mm.
so I had this moment of realization where I wanted to be more specific, because there were moments that I would save where it's like, oh, I saved this exact quote from a dinner that I had with friends, and all of a sudden it was this super powerful memory that took me back there immediately. And so it
Oh,
became this balancing act of, you don't want something super generic like fun dinner with friends, but I also found myself going to the other side of the spectrum where I would write these super long, almost full journal entries, and that started taking too long. So it became this
mm.
practice of finding the balance so that it was quick and efficient and not overwhelming, but I could also, when I reviewed them, have these powerful memories that brought me back to the specific time and place.
Oh, I really like that. I really like that. So there's that art of finding, yeah, something that's specific enough to jog the memory, but without having to write every down every detail. That what that brings to mind is I have an approach to like taking pictures that's a bit like that. So I
Mm,
take pictures pretty rarely, um, and I take because the thing is when I scroll through my photos feed, I want to have the effect where basically every picture is meaningful, and every
mm,
picture triggers a memory of something that is worth remembering. So I don't want to have a feed where it's just every single breakfast I've ever had, and there's 7 pictures of it. But it's like, and I feel like there's also this balance because it used to be that I basically never took pictures of anything, um, and it was kind of like this thing, oh, everybody's always taking pictures of everything with their phone. I'm not like everybody else, so I'm going to do the opposite. Which is where a lot of my reasoning starts, unfortunately. But I realized that maybe I'm missing out. But what I definitely don't want to do is just like compulsively take pictures of everything. But there is that balance where, yeah, it's like for me a real trip down memory lane when I just scroll through my photos.
mm. Yeah, I agree, and that's something I've added to my daily practice, as after I finish the handwriting of it, I'll immediately digitize it, and
Mm.
then I will add pictures and videos from that day. So then I have the handwritten component with the gratitude and the tracking and stuff, but then I also have these videos and pictures as well. So when I'm looking through them at the end of the month, it really paints a much more full picture than just my memory alone.
Interesting. How do you digitize them? Where does it go?
So I've created a pretty over the top kind of digital journal entry. It started as an Evernote style thing, and now I've moved over to
Mhm.
Notion. So I've created like kind of a tagging system and database where I then add all the photos and videos and the handwritten entry to a database in Notion.
Did Steph talk you into Notion?
No, I don't know who talked me into Notion. I think it was this weird phase where they must have done like a marketing campaign, and all of a sudden everyone was talking about it.
Everybody, yeah,
And
totally.
and I think it was around the time you were talking about it as well. And so I think I was like, all right, let me check this out. And I think as soon as I saw the power of the databases and
Mm.
pairing the databases, that I decided to make the switch. And I don't know if it is the best. I don't know if it's the best for the journal entries, but the thing I like about it is that I can add photos and videos, which is something I was definitely missing for Evernote because it only allows photos.
Right, right. Yeah, it's a super powerful tool. Yeah, so makes sense. Yeah, that's cool. So the review component, this is something I have tried a couple of times and basically always failed at. One
Mm,
of the actually for a bit of context, right? One of the things that I've noticed is that I like to do habit tracking where I will, track certain things. And at different times in my life, I've tracked different things, but it could be anything from tracking what you eat, tracking exercise you do, tracking meditation sessions, or even how many minutes I've spent meditating. And sometimes I've also just pulled out like key performance indicators, where I just track how many pull-ups I've done. And that's it, and it's just in general. I know that the more pull-ups I do, the better my fitness is on point, basically, because it means I'm also doing a bunch of other stuff generally. But anyway, so I've always had this habit of tracking stuff, but then it can become cumbersome if you're tracking too many things, right? And
mm,
there's too many things you have to log every day, or at least that's kind of my problem. I also like to not always have my phone around, and that's one of the obstacles. And it's like, okay, I've done the thing, and now I have to go get my phone in order to tap, in order to log this latest thing I've done. So one of the what I thought could be a solution to this is that you track certain things on a more macro scale. So you only track them once a week or once a month or something like that, right? Rather than
mm,
every day. And I've tried doing that, and basically that I haven't found a system that works. So I'm really curious to know more about what do you do weekly, monthly, yearly, um, with all this journaling that you're doing on a daily basis, or what do you do differently weekly, monthly, yearly?
mm. Yeah, I feel that a lot with the over tracking, and it's a problem that I've had as well, where it's like all of a sudden I'm tracking how much water I'm drinking, and it's like, oh, I just finished this water. I got to remember to log my water things, and ultimately that's energy that I could be put towards something better.
Mm.
And so one of the things that I've been trying to make more peace with is this idea of not being perfect with the tracking. Ultimately, it's a tool, and like you said, the more pull-ups I do, the better I'm going to be. And I kind of see the tracking aspect like this as well, where it's the more awareness I can bring to these things that are interesting to me, even though if it's not perfect. If my data set at the end of the year doesn't include every glass of water, the
Yeah.
attempt and the mindfulness about it is what's important. And so when it comes to the weekly and the monthly stuff, it has been a constant work in progress as well. And this idea of perfectionism around it is something that has been powerful in the journaling because I've started to notice it, where I will get this like fanatic tracking in it, and it's ultimately a detriment. And so
Mhm.
the other thing about systems that I've come to realize is as I put them in place, eventually they will break. And that's a good thing. And that means that the system needs to adapt and I need to evolve in some way. And so that's happened a few times where I'll try something and it'll fail. And I'll take that as a place to notice and learn. So an example of that is the weekly tracking, where I had this goal where it's like, all right, I'm going to answer these questions and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And after 2 weeks, I stopped doing it. And so I started making a note of, all right, I failed at this for the third week in a row. Maybe this isn't in alignment right now and it's not something that works. So what can I do was the first question. And I just completely changed that to something that was quicker. And so my weekly review now is I basically just review my weekly entries and make a quick note about things. So for example, I'm trying to get this handstand push-up and one arm chin-up. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do is work out six days a week. And so on my weekly review, I'll see if I did that. And if I did or didn't, then that's just this quick moment to check in and wonder why. Was I busy? Did I lack motivation? What can I do next week to try to hit that 6 out of 7? And I won't write this down, and it's more just an in the moment thing. I'll make a note just like in my weekly entry, like I hit 5 out of 7. And that's just a quick note on how many I did. And so the weekly entry went from this grandiose plans into a quick check-in. The monthly thing was something I experimented with this year, and it worked out extremely well. And that's a more in-depth journal entry that takes a few hours to do. And I thought this was the one that was going to fail, but this is the one that actually ended up being something that I've been able to carry throughout the whole year and found a lot of enjoyment in it. And it's less about tracking specific data points, for example, how many workouts I did, but more about this longer form processing. And so I have found questions that I really like. And so I will ask and answer those. And then the other aspect is going through all the daily highlights and pictures and picking out kind of a top 15 to 25 list and creating this list of monthly highlights. And so that's the monthly check-in. The yearly check-in is very similar to the monthly, just with kind of a more macro view of the year.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I think that there's actually two things I want to highlight here, because the first is about the like the perfectionism with tracking, because I think that's a bit of a life hack that I also discovered, where because I used to have this problem as well, where I feel like the tracking has to be perfect. And so, for example, when I was tracking my nutrition, it was this conflict. It's like I can't go out to eat, because if I eat out, I don't know exactly all the ingredients and I can't track it perfectly, right? And so it's almost like you're trying to do it perfectly until the one time you can't, and then you're like, oh, I'm giving up. Whereas actually you can go to the restaurant and be like, well, what's on my plate? I see a bunch of rice. I can estimate how much rice this is. Okay, what's this? This is some broccoli, some whatever, mixed vegetables, right? You can, and I'm assuming there's a lot of oil in this because it's a restaurant, right? It's like you can basically estimate and probably get pretty damn close to the real thing. And it's much better to do it than to do it perfectly. And another example of this is, I track all my expenses. And it's the same thing. I mean, usually I track it in the moment. I spend money, I immediately track it. But sometimes if I forget, I can just go, oh, I didn't track my expenses yesterday. You can just kind of remember, well, I bought this thing and I went to get a coffee there. How much was that? Well, just roughly 12 euros. There you go, right? It's close enough. Right. And it's better to do that than to insist on perfection. So, and similarly, on a similar note, I wonder if that is also part of the reason why maybe the monthly and yearly, works better, because it's rare enough that you can kind of just be like, well, I'm just going to look back at the month without feeling like granularly I have to be able to know every single detail that happened in the last 30 days,
Right.
Yeah. So I like that. I think a more informal maybe review, monthly and yearly review would be useful. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think you can really tie it into this idea that you talk a lot about of your job is to ship, right? And so when you get away from that perfection and look at
Mm.
it of like, how do I get this out there? How am I making progress on this? And you might not look at shipping in such it's a kind of a bigger thing when it comes to the journaling and shipping there, but it's again that idea of perfection is another form of procrastination. And it's like, oh, just
Yeah.
because I can't do this exactly right, then I'm going to quit. And
Mm.
ultimately, I think, you have a lot of experience in the entrepreneurship as well, where you see a lot of these people being successful purely because they just didn't give up when everyone else did. And just this idea
Yeah.
that your job is to sustain almost. And
Yeah.
if you can just do that, keep the consistency by creating the habit that's sustainable over the habit that's perfect, then you're gonna see massive results in the long run.
Yeah. 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 That's a really good way to frame it, I think, because yeah, some things. If the value of something is long term, then your highest priority is to essentially keep. Depending on how you frame it, right? It's like you need to keep playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Is one way in which I like to think about it, right? So when I think about risk management, when I think about entrepreneurial things, like the most important thing is that you can keep playing the entrepreneurial game. So don't make a decision where if this one business fails, you're completely broke and financially ruined, and then you can't keep playing the game, right?
Right.
um, and the most important thing is to make sure you can keep playing the game. Or yeah, another maybe a more dramatic way to frame it is like you have to survive, right? You have to keep going, and it's much more important that you keep going, even if it's in survival mode, than that you execute perfectly. I think that yeah proves to be true again and again, for sure. So, well, on that note, what are the benefits that you have felt from doing this kind of writing? Because when I talk about, I mean, I guess now I've done some I've done some marketing around this, so I guess I could give you a marketing spiel of here's why you should do introspective writing, but but apart from that, there is a bit of a problem with like trying to convince someone, I find, that this is a really worthwhile thing to do. You know,
Mm.
it's not immediately obvious that this is going to make your life better if you spend a lot of time writing. um, so, how do you think about that? What are the benefits that you have gotten out of this? What keeps you coming back to it?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. And I've tried to do some marketing around it as well, and have the same things where it's you you face these people that want a quick answer. And so it's how do
Mhm.
you deliver that in a way? For me, I think the most massive, I guess there's two, right? The most massive one is a deeper understanding of myself. And
Mm.
that is this very, very broad answer, but in all aspects of life, whether it's mental, spiritual, emotional, social, all of these aspects, I've come to know myself deeper because of my introspective writing, because of self reflection. And because I have that tool, whatever event comes up, I have an outlet to write it down. And just this documentation of it has helped me start to notice patterns. It's helped me start to notice basically issues that need to be worked on. And once I have that, it's like you don't know what you don't know, but as soon as you can understand what it is that I don't know, all of a
Mm.
sudden, I can kick into high gear and be like, okay, now I have a problem and now I can solve it. And so
Mm.
journaling has been massive in that, just figuring out these things that are often lurking deep within the unconscious. And that just gives me a platform to then start digging deeper into it. And journaling has often been the springboard for deeper work. I will notice something through my writing, and then that pushes me to finally take action to buy a course around it, to get a coach, to do a retreat, and take these bigger steps into knowing myself more deeply. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing. And the second thing that has been massive for me is building this habit of consistent discipline. So because I've been doing it every single day, it's just slowly over 9 years just trained this habit over and over and over again of, I don't want to do this, I don't have time to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And
Mm.
that has been massive when it comes to anything. It's such a transferable skill when then it comes to anything that I want to do around entrepreneurship, around physical health, around anything. Just this aspect of keep going. I'm not going to give up playing the game.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really interesting point. Yeah, you simply train your discipline, which is also just such a valuable thing. If you have the ability to just say, "Yeah, I'm just going to do it anyway,"
Yeah.
yeah, massively useful life skill. Yeah, that's really interesting. I also wonder. So I totally agree with everything you said. This kind of insight and yeah, insight into what's going on, it like gives you the ability to actually deal with things that otherwise you would just suffer from because you don't really know what's going on. So it's like you're just having a bad time. But through writing, you realize, oh, this is why I'm suffering. This is the thing I need to work on, right? And I think that's like maybe that's the specific benefit of this greater self-awareness, right? Um, I also wonder, do you find that it has essentially changed the way you think or made you a better thinker? Because this is, I think, one of the things that introspective writing does. You have the habit of organizing your thoughts, of clarifying things, right? Of taking essentially the mess that's in your head and putting it into some kind of a presentable sequence. And I think that is also, it transfers into, it changes the way you think in the first place, which is maybe more of an invisible benefit. But I sometimes wonder, if I didn't do any of this, what would the inside of my mind look like? And it might be shockingly different than what it is
Mm.
now.
Yeah, I think it has definitely upgraded my thinking, and it really starts to shine a light on things. And one of the things that I do, right, is I'll have this almost brain dump, first draft you could call it, of
Mm.
stuff that's going on in my head. And one of the aspects of having the digital journal is that when I start seeing these trends piling up, you can create a tag for it, right? For example, emotional development. Every time something comes up around emotional development, it's just this overarching umbrella that I can put everything under there. And then
Mm.
as I revisit these notes or these journal entries, I have almost this policy. And who did this? It came from like Tiago Fort. I think that's how you say his name. But he has this aspect of every time you touch a note and you revisit again, try to make the note better in some way.
Mm.
And so when I come back across these notes for whatever reason, I'm trying to find something, uh, or I'm just looking for something, and I come across these older journal entries, it's like I'll reread through it and I'll start bolding stuff, or I'll pick out keywords and create key trends. And then that becomes this springboard to then create all types of content around. When I'm writing anything about journaling in general, or my own process or my own journey, all of a sudden I have this huge pool of stuff where I can then pull out my own codes, my own manifesto, my own thoughts on things. And like you said, it upgrades your thinking. So then it helps for writing, but also in social situations when someone brings up a topic and it's like, oh, I've thought about this and had this problem multiple times. I've reread these notes and kind of summarized my jumbled thoughts on it. And now when I speak about it to you, it comes off as this eloquent, put together thing because I've almost inadvertently thought about it a lot of times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That just, what you just said just brought something to mind, which I think is probably true. I think it's maybe it just sounds true, but I think it's probably actually true, which is that for anyone who is creative, right? If you do creative work, it's a mistake if all the creation you do is for publishing, right? So if you want to be a good writer, if you only sit down to write whenever you have an article to publish or you're working on your book or whatever, that's a mistake. Same if you whatever you want to do video content or something like that, right? I think that's severely limiting if every time you sit down to do the creative thing, it is for one of these content pieces. It is for a piece of work where you have all these other considerations coming in. You essentially have more pressure, right? You have the pressure to perform, and you have to think about, what's my message and how do I make it appealing and engaging and so on and so forth. I think you need to have that outlet as a creative. You need to have that outlet where you do some creative work just for yourself. And so in this case, you're writing just for yourself. And it does things where it's almost like it sets some of the groundwork from which you then draw when you do your public creative work. I've never thought of it like that before, but I think that's, what you just explained just made me realize, or it made me think about, how much worse would my public content be if I didn't spend quite a lot of time writing. Probably a lot worse.
Yeah, I agree. And for the way I create anyway, which is I don't often build stuff from scratch. Like I feel like I often am putting pieces together from a whole bunch of different places and making a connection between things and putting my own spin on it. And if I don't have that reservoir of this kind of murky sea of stuff to then go in and pick out these themes and topics and remix them into my own version, it is very, very hard. And like you said, a ton of pressure. And I find when I have this repository of it, it's less, there's way less pressure. It's just like, oh yeah, I've thought about this. I just need to pick this here. Oh yeah, I've talked about this before and I'm going to pull that idea out. And then I'm just more or less rearranging pieces as opposed to building from complete scratch.
There you have it. We found another marketing angle to sell people on the idea of writing. That's what just happened here. Honestly, I think this can work. We'll do a introspective writing for creatives coming up soon. No, but I think it's really I think that's a really key thing, because I think it's one of these aspects of like professionalism. You see. Like we like to imitate, or it generally starts like that, right? You see someone doing something amazing, right? They're making great content, they're writing excellent books, they're whatever it is that they're doing, right? And generally we kind of see that almost a glorified version of that, and we think, I want that too. I want what this person has. And the mistake that we often fall into is that we essentially only copy the surface level. We only copy the visible stuff, right? It's almost like we try to accomplish the same thing by imitation. Whereas what it really takes is you have to take a deeper look at what is this person's process, what is all the stuff that they do in the shadows before they present their amazing final product, essentially, right? And I really think that this kind of work, is often like the less glorious, just daily, just do it every day, no matter what. The less spectacular everyday work is so important. And it's in this, you were talking about the quick result, right? Obviously everybody just wants the quick result, but in a way that's how you get the quick result. You have to do the non-glorious daily grinding on your craft until that is the shortcut. That's how you get there.
Yeah. What do they say? It's like it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And it's just
Yeah.
this idea of you put in so much work that the output becomes effortless for you and it looks effortless. And people see that and you're like, oh, he makes it look so easy. And it has become easy for you. At that point, you have put in so much work that is easy for you. And that is
exactly
the outcome of putting all that work in on the front end.
Yeah. Yeah, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. So once again, we're trying to encourage people to do the stuff that they don't want to do. But yeah, that's where it's at. So you have created some kind of a program around the type of writing you do, as far as I know, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's still a work in progress, but just trying to ship new versions out and test and stuff. Right now, the goal for me is to tackle this problem of consistency. How do
Okay.
you get someone to become consistent in journaling? And for me, it's this idea of something small that you can just do every single day. And when you can build up, if you make it easy enough, if you lower the board low enough and focus on that consistency before the complexity, then you'll be able to build this habit. And obviously you can do it with anything. And so my whole thing is around daily journaling. And so I've created this challenge where it's a challenge
Mm,
to get you to journal every single day for 30 days and see what that, like kind of what we were just talking about, where you have to see that work behind the shadows.
mm,
And that's why I love 30-day challenges. And the video challenge that you do is such a great example of that, right? Where if you have to publish a video every single day, you realize what that experience is like and how much effort that takes. And you start seeing these things that you never even thought about. Oh
mm,
yeah, I thought I just had to film a video, but no, I need to create a thumbnail now. And all of a sudden you realize these aspects of a system that you didn't even realize were there. And so for me, I just want people to have this experience of what it's like to sit down and write every single day. What does that look
mm.
like? How do you have to reframe your day so that you can do that? And so that's the first step of what I've created is a 30-day challenge to give people the experience of journaling every single day for 30 days. And so I give my own recipe on what I think that should include, but ultimately, I think journaling is a very personal experience. Anytime I've talked to anyone that has been able to keep a long-term journaling habit for months, years, decades, they're all different. And so ultimately, my goal is to bring this awareness around that and help people then create a, a system that works for them. And my way works for me, but it's not going to work for everyone. So that's that first key for me is getting people to do it for 30 days and then opening up their eyes to you can customize this to however you want. And that's what I'll build later is how to actually build that.
But the first thing is essentially you are using this as a way to get the benefits of writing, but also to practice that discipline muscle, right? To just
Right.
yeah, to just do it. And like you said, I think that yeah, any form of practice like this, it does carry over, right? You get better at just doing it
Yeah.
consistently.
And
Yeah.
that's the reason I like journaling for this as well, is because you can do it with something like flossing or making your bed or going to the gym, for example, which would be a good one. But it's like the gym is hard. It's harder to do that. And the reason I love journaling so much is that not only does it train the discipline, but it also has these massive benefits of coming to know yourself and practicing gratitude, which there are so many studies to show how beneficial that is. So it's like you can combine two into one habit and have massive
Mhm.
results with it.
Yeah, yeah. So where do we go if we want to join this challenge of yours?
So the first thing I have, it's kind of being run. It's not on an evergreen thing yet, which is what I'm working on. So the easiest thing is to just, I have a free offer kind of talking about my 3-step journaling formula. And that's at thequestforawesome.com/free. And if you sign up for that, you'll get on, you'll get the free training. And then I'll basically notify you every time I start a new round of the 30-day challenge.
All right, cool. So we'll link to that in the show notes as well. And obviously, I encourage everyone to do that because, yeah, any way in which I can encourage people to do more writing, I think it's so beneficial. It's so incredibly beneficial that, yeah. I think everybody should do it. Basically, everybody should get into it. And if you haven't gotten into it yet, then this is maybe the thing you need, right? You have Dave force you to do it for long enough until you start doing it by yourself.
Yeah, I have. I'm experimenting with something that I tried last time, and I'm probably going to try again. But it's this idea of this idea of forcing you, where it's like
Mhm.
you can do the easy version, or you can do the hard version, which you pay like a couple $100. You pay like $200 extra, and
Mhm.
if you prove to me that you journaled every single day for 30 days, I'll refund you that money back, the extra that you paid. But if you miss even one day, then I keep all of it. That's what
Oh
I'm playing
wow!
around with. It's the hard
One,
version.
dude, 1 day. Okay, I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna like subtract $5 per missed day or something, but no, just
Nah,
it is
nah.
no. Okay. All right.
And
Yeah,
basically,
I mean
that's
that's
that's too complex technologically. So it's just like it's all gone.
yeah,
It's all
it's
mine.
just all gone. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean that's all right. That almost incentivizes you to sabotage them somehow. No.
Yes, yes, in a way where it's like, oh, you missed that day. I didn't check in. But yeah, I was laughing about that of like I become the saboteur too, and
Yeah.
make a ton of money off of people. But
But I mean, I think that yeah, I think that's probably thinking too much about it because it's hard enough. It's hard enough to be disciplined. That this is
mm,
probably a profitable proposition, even if you don't do any extra work to get in people's
yeah,
way. And yeah,
yeah,
it's like throwing down the gauntlet, right? It's like, oh, you're going to do this challenge, or put your money where your mouth is, right?
yeah. And so I have the choice, of course. It's like you can
Yeah,
choose the
yeah,
normal version, or if you really want to challenge yourself, or that money is a driving factor. I think it's a
hmm
pretty powerful motivator for a lot of people, where you like you said, you put your money where your mouth is, and really challenge yourself to see if you can do it. And it's that extra push where it's at the end of the
yeah,
day, and you're like, I don't want to do it, and you just have that anything extra just to make it a bit harder for you to fail.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, and it's you can also think of it as you're setting something up for future you because it's
Mm,
like right now maybe you've listened to this podcast, you're like, yeah, that sounds really cool, writing is great, and you sign up for the offer and you're like, this is great, I'm totally going to do this, but what is future you going to think, right? What is you 2 weeks from now going to think? It's like, oh, but I had a
mm.
really long day and I'm really tired and I don't feel like it. And it helps to have that in place. Is that, well, if I don't do it, it's literally going to cost me $200.
Yeah,
Is it that important to me to not write today?
yeah. And it trains that to just do it anyway, right? Where it's just like, I don't
Yeah,
want to do this. And if you can train that, like you just have that moment of weakness and you just do it anyway. And that's such a
yeah,
powerful habit.
yeah, totally. Good stuff. Well, thank you. It's great to get some insight into your writing process, and I'll be interested to see how this develops further. Yeah, like I've said before, I feel like it's just such an important thing that yeah, anything anyone can do to get more people to write, I feel like makes the world a slightly better place. So I'm really happy to see you working on this too.
Yeah. Thank you. I think like I agree with you. You're preaching to the choir on that, where if
Mhm.
more people took the time to self-reflect, the world would be a better place. And so that's ultimately my mission, is just to help more people do it more often.
Nice. All right. Yeah, I think that's good. I think we can wrap here.
Awesome.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, it's good to see you again, man.
Yeah, you too. I like the goatee going.
Yeah, it's a very recent development. I'm still not sure about it, but there you go.
Yeah, you're better at it than me. Mine always looks like patchy pubic hair, so I don't ever let
I
it
mean,
go
this
too
is
long.
yeah, it's the same for me. It does look a bit pubic hairy, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
It looks better than mine would, so I'll give you that.
Okay, yeah. I do, I dream of having a glorious Viking beard, but I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't think it's ever gonna happen.
yeah. There's a guy that teaches handstands. I always see his ads on Instagram. His name's like Yuri Matheson or something, and he's just this ripped, bald, massive, beautiful beard. It's like, oh,
Mm.
one day.
And he's called Yuri. How much
Yeah,
more manly can you get, honestly? Leave
exactly.
some for the rest of us, dude.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, yeah. In Bali, I mean, that's especially in Nirvana gym. It's interesting. Like, yeah, I saw so many huge dudes. Like in Bali, I'm such a little guy there compared to just the average. Seems like the average guy is just about twice my size.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's I love going into the Nirvana gym because it's one of those places where you I don't know, you get the kind of like downloads, I guess. You just see how these people act
Mm,
and you get a
mm,
glimpse into their lifestyle. You see them eating, you see them training, and it's just this you don't even have to talk to them. It's almost this impassive thing where it's like that guy is exactly what I want to be physically and he's in here every fucking day. When I show
yeah.
up, he's here, and when I leave, he's still here. And it's like, oh, then you start to
Mm,
understand, oh, that's what it takes. And so it's like, even if I can get 10% of that, it's going to be better for me. And even if I
mm.
don't ever fully take it to the extreme they
Totally,
have
yeah.
gone.
Yeah, yeah. That's yeah. There's usually yeah, there's usually that at least that one person at the gym who's just always there. No matter when you
Yeah.
show up, they're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I've talked to a few of them, and it's very interesting because for me, it's again, it's about like seeing how they act and think about these things. And I
Mm,
ask, oh, what do you eat? What are you eating? And it's this very not what I expected, right? Like I expected them to be like, oh, here's the diet I follow, and this is how many macros and stuff I eat. And it's like, oh, I eat very intuitively. I just listen to
mm,
my body, and it's something they've trained over many years, but it's intuitive. And it's like, oh, what training program do you follow? And I get the same answer. It's like,
mm.
oh, I train intuitively. What I feel my body needs, that's what I go in and train. And it's like, okay, I've been looking
Um,
at this all wrong in a way. And
but
you know,
have they?
I
Is
know
it just
we
because they've reached like the level of unconscious competence? You know, where they've just gone through it so much that they don't have to think about it anymore.
I think so. It must be right. Like I think we talk. You talked a lot about that book Peak, which I think is so good, and they're the quality of your mental model, and they have like leveled up their mental model, and that's the final level where you basically have
Yeah.
internalized it so much that you can, and you have been training in a focused way where you're noticing how your body feels, you're noticing what your body responds to, so that when you then go into the gym, it's like, oh, I can feel what's imbalanced, I can feel what needs to be worked, I can feel what is fatigued and not ready to handle load. And then
Mm,
it's like you see what he can do in the gym, and it's like, wow, dude. And we're
yeah.
we were talking earlier in this about the work behind the scenes and the fundamentals, where it's like he has done the fundamentals so many times and they're so good that he can then go do skills that he's never practiced before. He's never ever tried to do a human flag, but because all of his flexibility and everything is so developed, you show him what it looks like and he's like, oh yeah, and he can just do it because all of the
Yeah.
muscle groups are so the foundation is there for everything.
Mm. Yeah. Do you know Alex Hormozy?
Mm-mm.
You should look him up. He's really good. He does mostly entrepreneurial content, but he's like this massive bodybuilder dude who talks about how he built his $1 billion business. But it's like, but he's not one of his. Yeah, it's a very interesting approach. Very interesting guy. And he has a couple of videos also talking about his training and whatnot. And he has a video where he talks about his diet, which is also like, here's how why I don't follow any diet, and all your fancy diets are all the same anyway, and here's why, right? And he kind of breaks it
Mm,
down. But it's also like, it just reminded me of that, where he's at the level where he basically doesn't worry about most of the stuff that most people worry about when it comes to diet and
mm,
training. And also interestingly with exercise, um, I've only recently, like, I remember at one point, this is a really long time ago, I was, I think, reading on a forum or something about exercise and about squats, about squat form and whatnot. And someone wrote something like, well, it takes a while before you get to the point where you actually can kind of use your muscles to squat properly. It's like you're actually pushing weight with your muscles.
Mm.
And I did feel like there was a progression, of going to the gym where in the beginning you're just like moving weights around, and you get to a point, especially with something like a squat, complex movement, we'll get to the point where it's like, yeah, now I'm really using the right muscles to actually move myself up.
Mm.
But it's even more recently, I've gotten to the point where now I get it when people talk about the mind muscle connection. I'd heard people talk about that all the time. It's kind of an old school bodybuilder thing almost. But I'm now at a point where when I do an exercise, I finally get it. I finally get what they're talking about. Where you really you can feel that contraction, right? And
Mm.
it, what you just said reminded me of that, because I feel like that is like, you have to get there in order to be able to be intuitive about it. Unless you have a really good mind muscle connection, like how can you tell what your body needs or whether you're doing too much or too little, right?
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I was training for years and years and years without that level of insight.
Powerful, man.
So yeah,
Yeah.
there's layers to this, man. There's layers.
Yeah.